All right. Hey everyone, had a little bit of a glitch, but we're back, we're here, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Simran, and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space that's based in San Francisco. I will add our website link into the chat box so you can come check us out. And if you're in the Bay Area, if you're in San Francisco, come by for a tour. Today we're in conversation with Henrybuilt, Cedar and Moss, and Fireclay Tile on how the pros do low waste. I'm now going to hand this over to our panel moderator, Katie Story of the GFDA. Oh wait, one quick thing. Q&A will be at the end. So go ahead and raise your hand or type your questions in the chat box, and we will answer your questions from there. All right, Katie, all you.
Great. Okay, thanks everyone. We're a few minutes behind, so we'll get right in here. Just a few quick things. These events, we're so glad you signed up and stuck with us for that little glitch. We're here. These events are meant to be educational, informative, and thought-provoking for GFDA members and the design community at large. They're free for members, a small fee for non-members. We're going to be having 2 to 3 a month, so please follow us on Instagram or check our events page of the GFDA for more information. So today's panelists, I'm super excited. 3 GFDA members. We have Janet Hall, VP of Business Development for Henrybuilt, based in Mill Valley. We have Eric Edelson of Fireclay Tile, CEO of Fireclay, based here in San Francisco. And then Michelle Arrow, founder and CEO of Cedar and Moss Lighting up in Portland. So let's dive right in, okay? Can I start with you, Lise? I have lots of questions for a lot of you, and I know our audience will too. But first, I want to talk about shipping and packaging because it's a huge area of waste that our members talk about a lot. And Henrybuilt, you've created kind of this, you've spent a lot of time and money developing a system to create shipping cabinetry in a very sustainable way, which is just shocking when you think of the scale of cabinetry, 3 feet, 6 feet, huge pieces. So Janet, can you kind of like start us off? Why did you undertake this investment? How did it work out? What are you learning? I think you have some slides, so yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is a topic we get really excited about. Henrybuilt's been around for about 20 years, and we've always been, the core of our business is, we've been focusing on opportunities to streamline our sustainable practices from the way we run our shop to our materials and sourcing, finishing, and getting things from point A to point B. It's part of our quality ethos as a company, kind of the reason our company is named Henry after our founder's grandfather. So, it's kind of cool because I'm assuming everyone on this call agrees with us that we believe that good business, exceptional design, and health and sustainability are 2 sides of the same coin. And we've never marketed these practices because we just think they're good practices. They're good business, right? For everybody. So I could go on and on about the things, that in terms of waste, but focusing, the biggest impact we make on that is a lifetime guarantee that our product lasts. So our stuff doesn't end up in the landfill. But as Katie said, the packaging and the shipping is a big deal, especially when you're building large items. So it's really interesting. So about 5 years ago, we put the spotlight on the way we were packing and shipping our products around the world because of the costs involved and because of the waste involved. So we did a bunch of, and not me, but our logistics specialists took a really big move. And one of the biggest things we did was purchase a packing machine called Pack Size. And if you see here on these slides, when we build our product, we actually build it, we structurally build it, we aren't flat packing. And we could get into a whole debate about that. But one of the things that means is there's not unhealthy cutting and things happening on site. So everything is built in units like you see here. This is stuff waiting to get shipped out. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of packing, there's a lot of fragile objects, that kind of thing. And so we've investigated, one of the things we heard so much from our clients, both homeowners and designers and contractors, was that the amount of packing waste on site to even deal with it volume wise was horrible. You know, whether it's foam, whether it was cloth wraps, whether it was plastic, all the things, just the pure volume was unmanageable. And so we started looking at this pack size, and basically we started looking at the time, the labor, the volume of material, and the crating of our products. And we found this machine that what it does is it actually plans and cuts cardboard packaging to the size of the actual item. And then it makes it so that you don't have to, it's crazy, you don't have to add any additional protection around the item. So there's no foam, there's no packing peanuts, there's no fabric, nothing. So not only does it reduce the size of the packaging around an item, it reduces the amount of materials, and it also makes less waste from minimal cardboard cutoffs. All these things you never think about. So we have reduced the actual material that it takes to package our product by 50%. Then 98% of the material that is left after the package is unwrapped at a construction site is curbside recyclable, 98%. So, and then the cutoffs that are created, they are then automatically shredded by this machine into packing material. So when there are instances where we still have to put in some sort of filler, it is filler created by this cardboard cutoffs. So that is it's been an amazing impact on revenue, which rolls down to clients because we're spending less on waste, no foam, and on ease. Then it also has a positive impact on our carbon footprint, because since each package is smaller, not requiring, that means that there is, for an entire kitchen that might have taken 6 crates to ship, it now takes 3 crates. So the carbon footprint also is down per household that we ship. So it's pretty amazing. And then the second thing we did was create our own crates. And so what you see here are actual structural plywood crates that we built, and they have little spring clips that wrap all of our, that we put everything into. And these are then shipped and end up in the construction site's front yard. So not only has it reduced damage to our product, but then they are broken down and they are shipped back to us, and we can use them up to 18 times. So those are 2 huge things we've done on the manufacturing level in terms of addressing waste, and while at the same time reducing costs, at the same time increasing the reliability, or reducing damage, I should say. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
That is amazing, Janet. I knew a little of that, but that presentation and explanation, it really helps. I mean, I was trying to imagine how you would package all this cabinetry and get it to the site undamaged, the delicate edges of the refrigerator surround or whatever. So nice work. I have a bunch of questions that I'll come back to about it. That's awesome. And I love the carbon footprint where, yeah, if you're not needing to ship as much material, you don't need to, you can reduce your footprint. Amazing.
And fewer people required to do the work. So again, from a business management standpoint, I'm sure that Eric can talk about this. So can Michelle. It also then means that that labor, that work gets to be put into the product for the client. Yeah,
for sure. So good. I want to stay on this topic because it is a big one for our members. So Michelle, you kind of have a different situation. Instead of massive scale, you have delicate lighting with like bulbs and beautiful, just beautiful lighting. I source it all the time, right? So how do you deal with packaging and shipping? I know you've explored some options, some that work, some don't. Can you tell us a little?
Yeah, that's a hard act to follow, Janet. We're younger and smaller for sure, but it was pretty easy when I started the company to just use all recyclable materials. Our metal fixtures were durable enough, and we figured out how to ship the glass. It wasn't really until we started shipping ceramic lights a couple years in, so about 5 years ago, that I know we talked about it before the session started, but we lost like half of our ceramics for months. And so, devastated customers, we are devastated to have to remake it, and ceramics take a while. And so we really had to figure out, and it's been a struggle for us, how do you ship ceramics? They're particularly fragile. So a couple of years ago, we started doing custom box inserts. And these really changed. On our Instagram stories, you can still see, I don't have a presentation for today, but you can see where we've been able to work with a local box company to come up with custom inserts for each of our designs. And they are able to spend we've seen these before. I think you'll buy things. I bought something from Hay recently, and they had it too. But we're small, so this is a kind of big deal for us and a big investment, because we're having to invest in all of these die cut cardboard inserts. For each design has a different insert, but it's been fabulous. We have so much less waste now, and also often before we'd have to do a box inside of a box with the cushioning, and now it's just sit in one box, and there's so much less damage. But I will say, we're small, so it's a couple steps forward and a couple steps back. Sometimes I was working from home earlier this year, and we were using biodegradable peanuts. Sometimes with ceramics, you just need those peanuts, right? So we had the little starch ones, and I'm on Instagram, and someone's watching I'm watching like an unveiling, right? And I'm like, oh, those are petroleum peanuts. Like, what happened? And so, the shipping manager had decided that the biodegradable ones weren't working, because in the wet weather, they were collapsing and things were getting broken again. So we're still learning and trying to figure out, like in the winter months, like we're still back to using the petroleum peanuts sometimes. So, and then I have another really quick funny story too. About 18 months ago, we spent, I don't know, 9 months trying to figure out how to do biodegradable plastic bags, because most of our stuff's green, but we put each fixture in a bag to protect the finish. Well, we were really worried, like, what if in a wet climate would it biodegrade and then ruin the finish? So we put fixtures in these biodegradable bags outside of our office in the bushes for months to see like what would happen if they get rained on and stuff. And it was pretty funny. They actually worked, but we ended up not using them, because if the customer doesn't recycle them in the exact right way, they actually could be worse in the landfill. They're not really stable. So it's, the technology is evolving and we're researching it, but it's definitely a struggle for us to make sure that packaging is as green as possible and easy to recycle for the customer once they get it. And then, make sure the product gets there, because ceramics that's an intensive process with all the firing. A lot of energy goes into making those ceramics. We absolutely want to make sure the customer gets them intact, because then they'll be a nice, stable product for years to come. Sure. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have ordered many products from you for projects, and none of them have come broken. So great for that. I mean, that's a huge thing that I don't think we think about. Like, we were talking before, like I ordered these tables from SoCal, so within the state. I thought that was really responsible, and they came packed in like a linen bag, and so they came super damaged, and now I can't use them. So being able to find a solution that is mostly sustainable, hopefully totally, but like that at least allows your product to show up undamaged is key. So that's great. And I love, it's so true. 2 steps forward, sometimes 3 back, but you get there eventually. Awesome. Well, I kind of want to shift gears with our agenda and give Eric a chance to tell us a little bit about your process of going to zero waste certification. I mean, you're already running Fireclay Tile. You have a beloved tile company here in the Bay Area, tons of followers. You like don't need more on your plate. So why did you take this on? It seems really ambitious when you're already like growing by leaps and bounds. Can you tell us?
That's very generous of you. And just a really quick, funny. Well, first context. So, Katie, thank you for putting this on. Simran, thank you so much to Canopy for sponsoring this and helping out and continue to promote this really important topic. And Michelle, I feel you. We used to, the story that Fireclay used to have years ago was, and we used to talk about this all the time, was we would go to a local furniture maker and we would trade 6 packs of beer for all of their shavings from wood. And that was our fill material for our packing. And that was our cushioning. And so we thought it was super cool. It was like this fun story, but it was a crap packing material. And so tile contractors hate it because when they took the tile out, it was like full of, all this wood chips and it didn't actually work. And if it got wet, like it did nothing. And so as we started getting bigger and shipping more cross country or whatever, we had to do away with that. So yes, it's an ever evolving process. But yeah, I mean, Katie, so the zero waste thing, it's interesting. I think waste is, I was thinking about this, and just to go on this tangent for a second, I almost compared it to like your health. So think about like your body and like breaking an arm, right? Like when you break an arm, it's very tangible. You see someone with a broken arm, or like you see the cast and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, what happened? And then, one of the things we're talking a lot about these days is mental health, right? Which you can't see, you can't understand it. Like someone's like, whether it's depression or something else, it's not physical, it's not visible. And I think on the environmental front, zero waste is like the broken arm, and the like carbon and environmental climate change is the like mental health issue, right? That's like hidden. So I think for us, waste was like super visible and very tangible. And so it became one of these things where as we were producing more, we were wasting more and we were throwing more out. And it got to this point where we just like had like, these bins that were being picked up every week from our local utility, like our trash company. And it was like, what's in there and why is it so much? So I think that was kind of like the journey for us, was we just started looking around and going, there's a lot of waste. How do we do something about it? And the zero waste certification became this thing that was like very tangible. It was like, okay, I think we can control this. We talked to a number of other manufacturers who had gone through similar kind of journeys. And we said, this is something that we can control. We can start talking to vendors, we can start talking to partners. And through, a couple of different, intensive measuring and quantification efforts, we slowly started to chip away at, whether it was kind of opportunities to recycle, opportunities to compost, opportunities to collaborate more with our suppliers to start bringing that down. So we've had a lot of wins. We've kind of taken our diversion rate from, it was 30% of kind of moving, only 30% of materials being composted or recycled, to we're at about 90% now. The certification is something that we pledged to do about 2 years ago. It was just kind of like putting that stake in the ground. We're going to be using a company to help us with that. And so that was kind of our pledge. It was kind of like our BHAG, big, hairy, scary, audacious goal of just like, let's do it, let's commit to it. And so we're committed to getting to that place by the end of this year. So that's kind of been our journey of just like, it's the physical side. Now the getting to the other part, which is like the invisible part, the carbon, all of that, like that's a whole other separate journey. But I think from the zero waste side, it's this very visible thing that we can control. And we felt like we had a responsibility to deal with it.
That's so great. I mean, and I love that analogy of like mental health or hidden health versus the broken arm that's staring you in the face. Yeah. And so you guys are putting out a sustainability report this year too. Is that right?
Yeah. We've got like this draft that we've been working on for like 6 months. And I think Fireclay, we're all about transparency, and some of that's based on the fact that we're a B Corp. Some of that's based on the fact that I think in our industry, there's just a tremendous desire for transparency. And I think for us, not just for our team, but for our clients, like we feel like by publishing and by sharing and being open about like both our successes, but also like our total shortcomings, because we still use some styrofoam and we still like use some plastic wrap and things that we're not proud of, that we can, kind of push ourselves further. So yeah, so by Earth Day, we'll have a sustainability report, and it's going to be complete. And it's not just sustainability from an environmental perspective, it's also kind of social justice and culture and elements of and diversity and equity, inclusivity. So we're taking it to that level as well. But yeah, we're excited about it. We're nervous about it, but it will happen.
It's amazing. And I like how it's all inclusive. So, I mean, certainly GFDA and many of our talks are about waste, but like you're taking all the components, many of which B Corp encourages. That's awesome. I will definitely be looking for that, the sustainability report. Very cool. So, okay, we've kind of covered packaging, covered your certification. There are a few other topics that people ask a lot about, and I think this is the right crew to talk about them. So one is over designing and over production, let's call it. So as designers in the design and build community, our goal is to create beautiful environments that are seamless and perfect and awe-inspiring, right? And most of us do that every day, day in and day out, and we overthink and over design, which is awesome, but sometimes we get a little carried away and we create a lot of waste in the process. So I was wondering if you could like talk a little about your thoughts around overproduction and like over design waste versus simplifying, and what your teams have kind of come away with. Let's see, maybe Lise, you want to start?
You mean Janet or?
I'm so sorry. Lisa's name is right here, but Janet, it's like, sorry, Lise. Janet, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I guess I'll kind of approach that from the two prongs. So like there's multitudes of ways to look at that. And I think it's a really interesting question. And it's one of the things that makes me actually most excited about the mission of your organization, Katie, or this one we belong to, GFDA, which is all of us coming together, with architects and interior designers and suppliers and contractors coming together to address like this, like over design, for example, or little moves we can make that have a huge impact. So on the design side of things, so Henrybuilt, a lot of people think of us as a manufacturer, and we are, but at the core of what we do, we're a design company, and we have a whole design team of architects and that kind of thing. And we work with our clients, our trade clients and our homeowner clients to design a project, for example, to integrate into the space. So let's talk about a kitchen. And one of the things we do in that is bring our system thinking to that process. So our designers know our system. So let's say, Katie, we're working together on designing a beautiful kitchen to integrate into your client's space. And you say, God, we really want this and that. And we'll say, you know what? And you'll say, well, it needs to be, 97.5 inches here. And it's like, well, you know what? We know that there's a material limitation on plywood to 96 inches. If we can come down by 1.5 inches, we don't have to waste what's 96 minus 1.5 inches, 94.5 inches of some other second sheet to accommodate. Is there another way to accommodate the design intent? So we bring the knowledge of our product and of material limitations and all that to the conversation with you and the designer to prevent a lot of that. I don't know if you want to call it over design, but I'll call it responsible design or material orientation and design. So that's a huge thing. And I think where everyone in this room can come together and really work together, whether I'm sure both Michelle and Eric, same thing in terms of their product, ways to use it smartly that still get to your design intent. If we all just stop and think about the intent and zoom up a little bit.
Absolutely. I love that example. And we talk about that a lot with architects who are members of the GFDA, like how do we design and build for exactly that, like 8-foot example. Like if boards come or materials come in a certain size, can you design more for that rather than like 1/4 of an inch over and throw away the extra 7 3/4 feet or whatever. So that's great. I love that so much.
I'll share, like, I think from our perspective, I'll share the good and the bad. So on the good side, which is like, yay, we're great. We only make to order. So I always make this joke in the tile industry. There's no shortage of product. There's no shortage of factories. There's no shortage of material in warehouses, like ready to be shipped to a customer. And so what we do is just make exactly what someone wants when they want it. And so just inherent in that, we're only producing what someone needs at that time. So that's good. The other thing that I think we've had success with is we made a commitment through an organization called Pledge 1%, where we pledge 1% of our product gets donated to charities every year. And so in the case where we do have some overproduction, or we can sometimes like tack on the runs, like we're able to find nonprofits or charity partners that can take material. And so we're trying to scale that up. And that's not like the most scalable approach, but it can be good. So those things can be helpful. I'll say on the bad side, we intentionally, Michelle, you talked about ceramics and breakage. We intentionally encourage customers to over order by like 10 to 15%. We call it attic stock, which is something pretty traditional in the tile industry, for cuts and in case of breakage. And so, it's like one of the hidden realities that I'm pretty sure that every one of our customers has boxes of Fireclay tile in their garages or basements or wherever it is, some of which I see being sold on Craigslist and elsewhere. And I don't know how to reconcile that, because we have this custom manufacturing, we have over 19,000 permutations, not even getting into like custom and stuff. It's hard to figure out how to like take that back and repurpose it. So that's a challenge for us that we have not figured out how to handle. But anyway, so that's where, the good and bad of the overproduction potential, at least for us.
That's such a good point. Like making to order, you would think is you make exactly what people need. There's no waste, but you're right. There also is no warehouse where you send back all the identical machine made white tiles. So yeah, that's great to call out the like pros and cons of it. And I just wonder, it's also great, like this pledge 1% for where there is overage. And if there are more opportunities for leftovers to be donated, I could go on that. But that's just like a fun area to think about for overages. That's another.
I'm thinking of a craft book you include what things people could make with their leftover Fireclay. I'm going to write it for you.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great. Okay, moving on to samples. We've all talked about this a little. So samples were already a thing before COVID, but now the sample world is out of control. Like I know for me personally as a designer, I am sending an enormous amount and sending back, hopefully, or dropping off when convenient, like samples. But what can we do about this? How do we handle it? Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I guess mostly Eric, you're with samples. Maybe Fireclay, you might be sending stain samples, and I imagine. So what do we do? How do we control the sample spiral? And will post-COVID we get back to like, will we be able to like implement a different system rather than shipping overnight everything? Or is that even that bad? I don't know, right? What are your takes on it?
Well, so, I mean, it's such a necessary part of this industry, and for us, it's such a sizable proportion of our costs and revenue. It's our biggest marketing expense. I mean, I guess like one of the obvious things I'll state is, we're massive fans of Material Bank and what Sandow has done there. We've been long on that platform for over 2 years now, and so we see a lot of like benefits in that. And I think from what they've done to consolidate shipments of multiple suppliers to clients is great. I think I mean, they're starting to, they're talking about like their shipments they're offsetting their carbon shipments from like their point to end point. They're still not holding their vendors accountable, which I hope they end up doing. But the fact that they have a tile take or a sample return program that's like seamless, I think that's like amazing. We haven't figured it out for us ourselves. We've not instituted any kind of take back program. Frankly, we're like trying to get more samples into people's hands because it is the best way for us to sell our product. So I don't have that kind of a true thing. I mean, from us, like it's a large cost. It's still a small portion of what we make. It still is a small portion. And even in this environment, our sample costs have gone up, like they've almost doubled in the last year, simply just from demand. And I freaked out about this like 2 weeks ago. And I thought it was because of what you said, Katie, that like we're overnighting everything. And it's not actually true, at least for us. Like our overnight, second day, third day is actually kind of comparable to what it's been. It's been trending to the exact same. So I don't think that I don't think clients are becoming like overly aggressive. I think people are staying quite reasonable actually. Yes, I don't know what we do about it. The only thing that we've done really promotionally and where we spent a lot of money is by partnering with Material Bank because they have such a great system to get this done at scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a great company. I was thinking about that and I forgot that you're part of it, but that's a really good solution for the smaller products, I guess. Janet, how do you handle that?
Yeah, it's interesting because contrary actually to Eric's company, like sampling is not super great way like to sell our product because what we do we don't just make cabinet doors, right? We're designing an entire kitchen system. And in a way, samples can get into the weeds too fast. Now, of course, we know that you designers, right, need to know that we have enough material range to achieve your aesthetic result and that kind of thing. So we've always done samples only by demand, and we don't do sample libraries. Our samples historically have also been large. And we do 12 by 12 samples because we're dealing with wood and you need to see the grain and there's variation. And we also historically have done them all finished, meaning they are on 3/4 inch plywood. So it's a heavy item and it's also a lot of material and it's expensive to produce. So we've been thinking about it a lot. So we are really, again, I think this is where partnering industry-wide and trying to change norms a little bit. We're trying to encourage as much digital use first so that it's reducing send me your entire sample library. It's like, okay, whoa, can you take our digital samples, which we know it's not perfect because everybody's computer screen looks different. Everyone's computer prints different, but narrow it down. Right. Then we are actually now in the middle, and I'm really excited about this because we have a little team, 4 of us, working on creating samples that are much smaller, and even more effective. So, I mean, I could pull up this little PDF of something, but it literally is what we're using to go back and forth. So reducing our 12 by 12 samples to almost like paint chip style. Mm-hmm. Of wood, and it's solid wood, so that again we're dealing with the visible broken arm and the mental health. We're getting samples into people's hands that are enough to get the color, provide them information about wood variability in a written form digitally, and then it also reduces carbon footprint because it becomes a little box this big. It the materials to make it tiny, so we're looking at how can we actually make our samples more effective, but also way less in terms of material consumption, shipping, all that. And then resort to only the big samples, like when we're actually in a project on site, it's a final decision and we're sending 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. As a confirmation rather than 12, that kind of thing. But I think it's a conversation industry-wide about how we use samples, how we get lazy about it, how we store them, all that kind of thing. It's challenging.
Absolutely. It's very common, I think, for us to have sample libraries that are cleaned out once a year, and you have piles this high, and then what do you do with them? Like, there's scrap can only take so much. There are only so many tables, like mosaic tables you want to make, right? It's crazy. And so I think shifting the mindset to what do you really, really want to sample? Like, what is viable? Your top 6 colors or your top 4 woods, I don't know. Narrow it down first instead of asking for the whole sample of 58 colors or
right. It's a bigger conversation. Is the era of the sample library in every designer's office over? And is something like Eric's doing with the material bank, where you have a centralized library? Let's go back to the public library system in terms of materials. No joke.
I love that. Yeah, during COVID, when I let go of my studio lease and came home because I didn't know what was happening, and that prompted me to get rid of a lot of samples that I never used. So now I have in 4 little carts downstairs everything that I gravitate towards. Of course, I take a one off here and there, so all my designs aren't the same, but it's I was able to narrow it down to just the ones I really appreciated and that inspired me. When I go to start a project, okay, what are the samples and materials I love? And then from there I can do a one-off. But I like that idea of sample library for real, public sample library.
There's something about this too, where I think for, go back to I don't know, ancient times, in the town you had one provider for your bread and one provider for your dairy and one provider for, it's you're one shoemaker. And, I think there's just so much stuff. And so what I would encourage, and I think this is where, organizations like yours, Katie, and other certifications and just transparency in general is I think for trade, not everyone has to have everything, right? I mean, you can have those few vendors. You can have your lighting vendor. You can have your cabinet vendor. You don't need everything from everyone. And so I think that there's just a whittling down, and hopefully designers, homeowners, et cetera, can have more information to make more informed decisions, to just have those partners that they go to often and trust, and they don't need to have it all. And so I think there's a responsibility, like you just said, Katie, of just narrow your focus and go deep with the trusted partners. And I think that's a big opportunity for everyone as well.
And that creates all kinds of efficiencies. It also hits that, we could get in the whole the conversation about the burden of choice for clients, right? And that actually as a designer's, that's part of the expertise you bring, right? Or we all bring is helping come forward with the few and the best, rather than making the world too big. And then no one's satisfied with the result anyway.
Yeah.
That's something that we're in the process of doing is, and I hope no one's heartbroken over this, but we had a gloss white and a matte white. And this was prompting people to, of course, naturally request samples. And so we're actually going to have a satin white. We're going to get rid of the gloss and get rid of the matte. We're going to have something that's it's going to be powder coat instead of liquid. And so it will have less VOCs. It's a more environmental finish. But again, it will be less confusing to the customer. They were actually the same color, just 2 different sheens. But this way, it's less choice. There should be less samples. And we had a graphite patina, a really beautiful. It's we're proud of it, or so proud of it. It's our favorite finish. And then matte black. But again, that led to a lot of confusion. We really looked at sales. The graphite patina didn't sell that well. So we actually just discontinued that. We'll still do it for customers. But it will allow us to be greener. We don't have to inventory as many items. It's better for business, less and less labor too. It's super laborious. But it should actually help with the decision fatigue or that confusion. Why do you have these 2 that are so close? So I don't know. I hate to away, you know, in a way to take away options, but I think it really is the environmental thing to do here. And it certainly should make us more efficient and get our lead times down.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting like detour of like, is that the way we should be headed in, is like simplifying, like Eric said, like go deep with somebody, your 6 top vendors or whatever, find out everything you can. I don't know, like, is that better design or not? I mean, it's certainly easier and you then get trusted relationships with vetted products. I don't know what the trend is going to be, but I like the sound of that one, right? It also just allows for like more headspace. I know clearing out my samples, I was just like, oh, right, I don't have this weight of like, oh, maybe I can design something to work with that pattern that I kind of don't like, but is in my library because I grabbed it. You know, now it's like, here's something I love, let's run with that. Like that inspires me and ignites creativity right away. So, okay, we are almost approaching Q&A, but I have one more topic because it seems like all 3 of you are highly successful and have figured out a lot of things that we're all still working on. So for all of our viewers who are kind of like either intimidated or scared or feel like they don't have time to start implementing low waste principles or don't know where to begin, like, do you have any kind of advice about how to get going?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, it's always about like just one step at a time. And I think you know, Fireclay is almost a 35-year-old company. I've been here for 13 years, and so I think that everything takes time. I think there is always we have a teammate on the call here today, Janet Placencia, who's one of my partners in crime on this front, and it's all about measuring. And so Janet's part of our accounting team, and we've tapped her to help on our zero waste and measurement initiatives. And so, you know, it is all about collecting the data, and the data can be everything from just looking at your energy bill and, you know, starting there. It can be looking at some of your shipments. It can start being like offsetting your carbon at your, you know, for your business, maybe your transportation. It can start being looking at your trash bill and like, you know, weighing your trash. I mean, like little silly things like that. But I think for us, it's all about like measure, and like add little bits at a time. You know, we started with offsetting our business emissions, and then we started adding our shipping emissions, and now we offset all scope 1, 2, and 3, all emissions from everywhere across the entire operation, and our vendor suppliers. So it's like, I just think everything takes time. The other thing I'll say is, I think resources, I think organizations like GFDA are amazing. And what I'll also say is, like, I just think like find those partners or people that you admire and look up to who are doing a great job. For us, those were brands like 3Form or Interface, who we saw as being leaders out there. And, you know, we just call those people and we say, like, how are you doing it? What are you doing? Like, specifically, like, show me the report, show me the information, like how do you offset, you know, how do you do that? You know, so I just think that, you know, there's a lot of people who are, if you're interested in this, people are passionate, they're going to talk about it. And so whether that's like a design firm, an architecture firm that's out there and talking about this, like go ask them. They will tell you, they will want to share, and they will want to learn. And I just think you can't ever lose by asking people for help, especially in this topic where you have so many passionate people.
Yeah, and you know, we talk about small steps are large steps when they add up. So I just echo Eric, start small, and best practices, like you say, Eric. I mean, even conversations like this, share best practices with and communities coming together. I think getting out of our little vacuums. I also think there are a lot of, on the resources front, you know, even just going online and looking at like different certification requirements can spur ideas, even if you're not going to go for that. But like, there are all these things for different, you know, health product declarations, there's declare, there's the red list, there's a variety of these certifications, the zero waste certification Eric's talking about. Just looking at their requirements can spur ideas. There are also a lot of volunteer kind of things, like in Henrybuilt joined there's a like a volunteer certification. I can't, there's a term for it, with the Washington State Environmental Government Agency, and we voluntarily participate. And so that has prompted us, it prompts you to do that measurement that Eric's talking about, that then prompts activity.
I second that. We're in the process, or we're starting the B Corp journey, and the first part is a lengthy assessment, and it's so informative. Like in a lot of it's like, oh yeah, we do that, but we don't have a policy written, and the staff, the Peanuts is a perfect example, right? We haven't made sure everyone here knows what the policy is, and new employees as we grow. So that's a really good recommendation. Even if you, the B Corp, it does take some time to get through it, but so many thoughtful questions that really remind you of things that you need to do.
That's awesome. All of this. So start small, just start, ask questions, measure data, seek information from peers. I was on a call this morning and somebody said, well, we want to join, but we're not doing perfectly yet. I said, well, I mean, just join. Like, we're here. The GFDA is a community where you can learn and ask and be welcomed to do better. We're not here to shame. And all three of these companies are definitely practicing that. And I thank you for that. So we're at 12:55. I think there are a few questions. I know we were a few minutes late, so we can run over, but I want to also be mindful of the 1 o'clock lunch hour, maybe stopping. So Simran, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question from Katie. She's asking, what are the most sustainability certifications for us, the consumer, to look out for?
Gosh, there are so many. There are too many. So I think, from our perspective, we do B Corp certification, and the simple reason why is it's actually quite easy for us to certify at a product level, because all you're certifying is that you're telling them what your product is, and then they're certifying that what you say it is. And so whether that's a certain amount of recycled content, or it does or does not have certain materials in it. But I think that the B Corp, and that's awesome, Michelle, that you guys are pursuing it, is the full company and the full transparency around like every part of the operation. But anyway, I mean, that's the one that we're like most focused on from our standpoint. So anyway.
And does anyone else have anything to add to that, or? No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So Lauren's asking, what was the name of the packing machine that Henrybuilt uses?
It's called Pack Size.
Pack Size. Okay.
And I can find out if Laura wants to email me at janet@henrybuilt.com. I can find out from our logistics team if it's who manufactures, like, more information about it. That's all I know. It's called Pack Size.
Pack Size. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This question is for Eric. Is there a world where you would want to start a buyback program for the 10 to 15% overages with purchase for projects?
I know. I saw that, Michael, and I got to get your email to ask you about that. No one's asked me that before. It's provocative. I don't know. I definitely, it like keeps me up at night. I don't know how to reconcile it. But I'll put my information here. I'd love to follow up with you about that.
And you can actually,
I think it would be fun. We have we're really picky. So if we have a part that, I don't has the smallest thing, sometimes I'm just like, what is wrong with this? And then we recycle all the metal, but it just kills me, because it's like somewhat we could make lights out of those, but it would be perfectly good for homeowners, like a first-time homeowner. I love the idea of like maybe hooking first-time homeowners up with free product or very low cost, or I don't know. Maybe there could be a way where you could donate that tile, and the DIY first-time home buyer, apartment dweller that just got permission from their landlord. Seems like we can give back and really get the love of home improvement going with the new generation. I don't know.
No, that's great.
You just have time to build all those extra lights.
I have another question here on samples from Sarah. Would you all consider offering digital samples through companies like Primer, which uses AI to see the material in your space?
I I was talking about digital samples earlier. We at this point are just, we have our, materials PDFs, and we've got, I'm sure Michelle and Eric do too. We also, have photographs of completed projects in all various materials. But I think that's a really interesting, thing to explore. We haven't used AI, but I think maybe that is a next step. All these tools are coming out so fast and furiously. The more we can use that, I think the better. This notion of continuing to reduce waste, shipping, and get better information to make choices.
Yeah, Primer is one of our partners with the GFDA. We had them on a few weeks ago, and it's an incredible technology. And they're starting with wall coverings, like textiles, wallpaper, tile. So you take a picture of your wall, you select Fireclay tile and put it up into your wall, and then you, as the designer or the client, can really visually see what your room's going to look like. And then maybe you'll be like, oh, I want to see that in person and get the sample, or you'll be like, oh no, that's ugly, I'm not going to do that, or whatever, right? But it's a really great technology, and we're excited to have partnered with them.
Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions left. Lawrence actually left, but he had a question about, it's a pretty long, oh wait, there's a dry cleaner idea, and the other question was, wait, where did it go? Speaking about the paint chips with samples with a considerable variation like woods, what might be the ideal sample number to convey the complete range of variation to be sent to a client using the tiny samples instead of the large ones? Do you send 3? Do you send 7? You're still sending far less material weight with a truer example. It's a little bit confusing. It's more of a statement. But can you read that question yourself if you scroll up in the chat box? Basically, I think it was asking how many do you send out to somebody?
Well, it's interesting, like with wood, as I mentioned, it's challenging, right? And it's like stone. Even if you send a 12 by 12 sample, even if you send a 3 foot by 3 foot sample, there's going to be variation. And that's one of the beauties of it, right? So at a certain point, you have to understand the nature of wood and be comfortable with that as a material, because it's not like a fabric with a repeating pattern, there is natural variation, and that's why you choose wood. So what we're doing is trying to still offer some of the big samples, but the thought is if you start with the small ones and weed it down in terms of the finish stain, for example, then we can send one sample that's larger, so you get a sense for the variation in the wood. We also created a digital tool last year to address this, even with our bigger samples, but taking photos of a 8 by 12 or a 8 foot, by 4 foot veneered panel, and showing, what a sample representation is and how it reads with the rest of it. So giving those kinds of information, but those kind of materials are natural materials. And so part of it is embracing that. And if you can't handle variation, wood's not your material.
And the big part is setting clients' expectations.
Exactly.
Right? This is the actual product. There are going to be variations.
That's the beauty of it, right?
It's going to look like what you see in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question from Lauren. How can we as designers educate ourselves better on all these incredible details of your companies and help us sell it better? I think we can sell more the more we know.
This is really interesting for me to hear because, you know, I always kind of believe you don't talk about it, you just do it. You don't need to tell people your charitable, you know, donations. You just do them. You know, you don't do them. And so I don't even like talking about things that we do that are progressive because I feel like that's cheapens it in a way. So it's interesting to hear that people and our staff will be like, how come you don't tell people that you pay living wages and you take good care of us? And I'm like, well, I think that cheapens it. But it's interesting. I've never really thought that you guys want to market that. So I don't know.
We've had the same philosophy that it's just good business and we don't believe in doing it for marketing reasons. And so even if you talk about it, sometimes it feels like it might come across as you're doing it only for marketing reasons. So we too haven't talked about it much. And so it's kind of this double, we make the information available, like, you know, our lead we make the technical information available when architects ask, like lead certification or FSC certifications, or, you know, our technical finish, you know, no VOC science information, but we don't market it either. So it really is interesting, you know, how to walk that line.
Yeah, and I think, oh, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I would encourage you to do the exact opposite. I would encourage you to share and promote and because I think that it's one, I think by putting it out there, you hold yourselves accountable and you then are able to do even more. And so like, I think it was, so Lauren, I think you asked a good question. And like, I just think that the best thing you can do is ask. I was on a call 2 weeks ago with an architecture firm up in Seattle, like a top 50 architecture firm. And they had, you know, they spent 30 minutes with me, just like grilling me on everything from diversity to our vendor code of conduct to ownership. I mean, all kinds of different things because they want to learn more about their kind of like partners and they want to hold themselves accountable to it so that they can then, you know, share that with their clients. And so I just think that the more people are asking questions and the more that you're asking your vendors these questions, one, I mean, for certain brands, which I, you know, again, I think it's some of it's marketing, some of it's is the accountability and transparency, but it gives you that opportunity to learn more. And again, I think the more that we know about all of these different brands, the more that we can then share and sell it to clients and get clients excited about it. And clients can feel even more proud about having that. I mean, I think the reason that we love, you know, Ben & Jerry's ice cream is because like, they're so out there, like they're so responsible. They're doing like cool progressive stuff. I think the reason that like we love, you know, Patagonia is because they're, you know, 1% for the planet and they're, you know, doing so much to stand up for the environment. And so I think we can give these like designers and architects and clients these stories. It makes them fall in love so much more with the material, the product, the company than ever before. So I encourage people to share it and to be transparent about it. And I encourage the trade to ask and just to learn and be curious.
Yeah, I would say go to the websites right now and, you know, and then ask. And then I know for those of you on the call, I think Katie's going to send out some information from all the companies that.
We should start wrapping up, but that's a great way to end. You know, I think all three of you are so impressive with how much you're handling, how far you've come, how you're leading the way, really, in all of the things that we at the GFDA are interested in: waste, carbon reduction, sustainability, fair treatment, you know, all of that. And so I think also that, Lauren, that's a great question. We already are this year ramping up our programming online until we can meet back again in person, hopefully at Canopy Space Live, since Simran's doing a great job getting us through tech difficulties. We won't have any of that when we get back in person, but we're going to really be ramping up these learning opportunities. So please, if you're not a member, that's fine. Just get involved via Instagram or our newsletter. And then if you want to join, you can also do that. But we're going to be here providing content regularly for a while. So thank you all for attending and showing up and staying for this whole time. And thank you to Janet, Michelle, Eric, and Simran. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having us. It was
Yeah.
fun. Bye.
Bye.
Good morning, everyone, and hopefully I'll see you all in person at the end of the year.
All right. See you.
All right,
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.